So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I think we have people from literally all over the world joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cristina Lessen-Bandeira, and I'm chair of IPEN, the International Parliament Engagement Network, which co-hosts with the IPU, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, the Public Engagement Hub. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this seminar on public petitions with a focus on the practice in Nigeria. This seminar is part of a series of seminars we've been conducting since 2022, and it explores issues of public engagement, usually through a variety of different case studies and different topics, and it follows the publication of the Global Parliamentary Report on Public Engagement, and in March of 2022, I think it was, so already quite a while now. We've done a lot since then. Before introducing today's topic and our speakers in particular, just a few housekeeping rules. The seminar has translation into French and into Spanish, and from also. So I would advise you to select the language in which you want to hear the seminar. The speakers will speak in English, but there may be questions in Spanish or French. So if you go to the bottom of your screen and you see a symbol of a globe there, which is a translation, and if you click on it, you can choose which language you'd like to hear the seminar in. Throughout the seminar, please keep your mics muted unless you're asking questions. But you're very welcome, if your internet allows you, you're very welcome to keep your cameras on, because we love seeing everyone's faces. And if you're able to rename yourself to say which country you're calling in, then that's really helpful for us also when it comes to questions. And I'll try to do mine myself in a minute. It only has my name. But if you can rename your name and add the country, that will be really helpful. But throughout, just keep your mics muted unless you're speaking. So to our topic today. So we're talking about petitions. And for those of you who know me, know that I'm a bit obsessed with petitions, actually. I've been researching petitions for several decades, let's call it. And petitions are one of the oldest tools for citizen participation in our political systems. That we know that they've actually existed since at least the 5th century before Christ in ancient Persia. So they are really, really old. They're older than parliaments. And many parliaments, though, today have their own petition systems. And with petitions performing a variety of roles, from campaigning to scrutiny, policy, linkage, etc. But there's many, many variations of the system because there's so many different types of systems. And all of those variations affect the type of roles that petitions can play in the political system. And we often hear mainly of Western cases or Western models or European-based models. We don't often hear about models in parliaments, not in the West or in the Global South. And today it's a real our pleasure to be able to focus on Nigeria and to hear about the experience in Nigeria and to understand how the practice has developed in there, but also about the sort of role it might perform in Nigeria, but also some of the challenges or sort of things that could be brought in for its future. And we have two excellent speakers to talk to us about this. So we have on one side the perspective from Parliament, on the other side the perspective from civil society. And petitions are very much a tool that brings together political systems, parliaments, and civil society citizens. So it's our real pleasure to have Honourable Uzoma Nkem-Abonta here. Honourable Abonta is a former member of the House of Representatives from 2007 to 2023 and a former chair of the Petitions Committee. So he has a lot of experience of managing the petition system and a lot of views on this. But we also have from the civil society side, Oke Epia, founder and executive director of Order Paper, Nigeria's foremost parliamentary monitoring organization and policy think tank. So thank you so much for agreeing to be with us, Honourable Abonta and Oke Epia, and I look forward to have this conversation with you. So our seminar is going to follow an in-conversation format, which means I'll be threading in questions to our speakers and we'll do a conversation. So it's not a presentation of PowerPoint like often seminars are, it's a slightly different model. And as we're doing this conversation, you as the audience, you're very welcome to come in to ask your own questions. Just click on raise your hand and I'll bring you in. Or if you have your own practice in your own countries of petitions and want to share those practices or ask a question, again, you're very welcome to come in. In any case, we will leave time at the end for a traditional Q&A. But if you want to come in as we're discussing these issues, you're very welcome to. And if you want to ask questions, if you want to come in, the best way to do is to click on raise your hand, which you should be able to find at the bottom of your screen, and the reactions, I think it is. Just checking, yeah. And the reactions, you can click on raise your hand and then I'll see it. Or if you rather do it in the chat, if you rather me reading your question, just write in the chat and I'll pick it up in that way. So hopefully we're all set now. I'm just opening the chat, make sure that if there's anything in there, I can see it. So let's start very much from the beginning. And again, thank you so much, Honourable Abonta and Oke Epia to be with us. And it'd be good to understand really the purposes that petitions serve. Because quite often we sort of put them all in the same pack and think they're just there to change policy, but actually they do many other things. So I'd start with you, Honourable Abonta, if that's okay, and ask you, what do you think the purposes of petitions process has played in the Parliament of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Like you observed, petitions played a lot of key roles in Nigeria. Our democracy is very, very nascent, and with little participation from the public, the electorate. After elections, they consider or they contribute little or nothing in the policy formation and the discussions in the parliament. But with the introduction of public petition, people are able to participate. People are able to try to address their grievances or put in what ought to be. So I should think that public petition, if well harnessed, if well done, will improve public participation in Nigeria and help the electors to be part of policy making and considerations. With public petitions, a lot of misconceptions by government or wrong policies is being addressed. In as much as it had a lot of challenges to get in there, but public petition, honestly, after the introduction into our democracy, had helped to deepen democratic values. But we need to do more. We need to educate the electorate, educate the masses of the uses of public petition and the applications and the process, and also simplify the process of public petition in Nigeria. In Nigeria, it's still not yet brought down to the grassroots where people can effectively and at ease initiate a public petition. Because if the process is not simplified and made in a way that it can be done, and that the petition must also be heard speedily to give them one reason or the other. But in the totality of it, public petition added value, has increased participation by the people. And you see, when the people are involved in making the policy, or otherwise, it gives legitimacy to the policy itself. It gives credibility to that. But if they are alienated from it, it shows a link. In Nigeria, public petition shows the strong tie or the link between the parliament and the people. It's through public petition that the parliament can feel the pulse of the people outside parliament. Parliament cannot see through it. It is the eyeglass, is the frame within which the parliament sees what's happening in the public. So I would say that public petition had added value increasingly, though we are yet to get it to a cruising point, but it added value to the democratic processes in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. I really like that expression of added value, because that can mean so many different things, can't it? And you mentioned already adding it's a participation, a way of people participating in the system, but also a way of providing legitimacy to policy, so that it's not just a participation, it's then that dimension of legitimacy, which then gives credibility to policy. If the policies are based on support from the people, then they are more legitimate, or they're seen as more legitimate by the people. And on that, we have, in November, we have a seminar which is going to address that, actually, what way tools of participation, like petitions of engagement, can give legitimacy and support legislation going forward. What about in your case, okay, what would you say are the purposes of the petitions process in the Parliament of Nigeria?
Yes, thank you, Christina, and good morning from here. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining the call from. It's a pleasure to be discussing this topic with you this morning. Public petitions system in Nigeria has allowed the parliament and members of parliament to be able to actualize a key function that they are seized with, and that is representation. The legislature has three key functions, as you very well know: the function of lawmaking, the function of representation, and of course the performance of oversight. The petitions mechanism offers that very valuable and veritable window to actualize the function of representation. Even though, in Nigeria, the conversation around representation is usually more around what we call constituency projects, what is called POC barrier in some other jurisdiction, those projects that legislators are allowed to put in the budget. That is usually the focus when it comes to representation, and rightly so. It has become very controversial because huge sums of monies are involved, but that's not what we are talking about. So with the public petitions mechanism, it's a great way of allowing members of parliament to actually give life to their function of representation. On the other hand, it allows constituents, citizens, to be able to demand legislatory service delivery from their legislators, because if as constituents there are grievances that they need to address and they don't want to go to court, or there is the alternative dispute resolution provided by parliament, it offers them that window to be able to get closer to members of parliament, and also to be able to, understand the parliament more. Honorable Abonta make the point about misconceptions, wrong expectations on the parliament and members of parliament. That's very real in Nigeria. It's one of the major issues that we grapple with. The misconceptions are really widespread. The expectations are misplaced most of the time. But that's because members of parliament are also not effectively delivering services. So with public petitions, they have that opportunity to do so. And constituents and citizens also have the responsibility to make demands of their representatives, to say, look, we have these grievances, we have these petitions, we need to have you help us address them. And I agree completely with Honorable Abonta. Some progress is being made. It's a great value addition, especially when you look at how difficult it is sometimes to get justice dispensed in the judiciary. Difficult in the sense that it can be slow. It can be painfully slow. The processes can take months and years. People are in court for as long as 2-3 decades on a matter. Sometimes matters that could easily be dispensed with by alternative dispute resolution. So yes, that mechanism, public petitions mechanism, offers that window, to help decongest the judiciary, if we may say so, and of course help to increase the space for citizens to ventilate, and be part of the public policy process.
Thank you. Lots of great ideas in there, and I'll start with that last one, the opportunity to ventilate and its responsibility of citizens, because petitions don't work just if Parliament does something about it, isn't it? It's about how people feel about petitions and whether they feel they can use to express those views. And the ability to ventilate or to protest actually is a very useful thing that petitions can do to show there's something here is not working well. and that is something that can be useful for government and for members. And you also mentioned about misconceptions and expectations. Increasingly, in my research, I've seen that that's really important, the managing of expectations, to explain to what it is a petition can achieve or can't achieve. And as you said, okay, about sometimes it takes a long, long time. And that is something that I hear a lot in my research, that it takes a long time for any result or any tangible results to come out. And people don't necessarily always see that. So let's focus a little bit about on the actual system in Nigeria and how it has developed. So Honourable Abonta, you already indicated that there's a lot more that can be done. They can be simplified and all of that, and we can talk more a little bit later in the seminar about what reforms you could bring in, how you change. But can you paint us a picture now of how it has developed over time? Has it become more or has it become less important? And, you know, when it was first established, maybe it had these ideals. Have those been brought to fruition? Has it become something different? So how has it developed over time? And when was it introduced? Was it introduced straight away when democracy was brought in, or was it a bit later? So can you paint us a picture of how it has developed, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. As a matter of fact, the development has been very slow. You see, with the advent of the military and the effects on Nigerian democracy, the issue of public petition did not come in very, very seriously. But from, say, 1999, a more emphasis came to public petition, but we still need to do a lot of advocacy on it. That's where civil societies are now very, very relevant. In Nigerian context, the development is very, very slow because the procedure of filing the petitions and even hearing became an issue. From the beginning too, the committee was manned by legal minds that contributes in how decisions and procedure are done. But in the order paper, in the standing order of the Parliament, it set out the Committee on Public Petition and made it a Grade A committee, a special standing committee with members drawn from every constituency, so that every constituency will be covered, have a representation and so on. Then at times, the attitude of members not taking it seriously by attending sittings and functions was a big minus, a big minus. But I must say that as time went on, the importance of public petitions now is being emphasized more so, as some cases or matters were being heard and resolutions made and brought to the floor of the House. Now people began seeing the uses of public petition, how it can help the people, how you can use it to address issues without being confrontational, without going violently. It's an alternative dispute resolution and gives them an insight on what the government is doing. By so doing, they can have a say. We don't want this, or we want this included. So, but again, capacity is slowing down public petition, both from the part of the parliamentarians and also the electorate in what they're supposed to do. So we need to do a lot of capacity building. We need to do a lot of advocacy. We need to also standardize the procedure within which public petition can be done. What I did to increase the speed then was we tried to establish an e-petition, having a platform where you can send in your petition through e-method, and then we'll look at it, verify it very well, and then give you a date. Because by the time you now, let me say that you must come to the national parliament to hear your petition. So by the time you come, maybe we didn't sit or one thing or the other, it was a big problem. In Nigeria, I can say it's big. For example, Sokoto to Abuja or Port Harcourt to Abuja. So can you imagine a petitioner coming all that way to present the petition to be heard? It makes it clumsy. It makes it cumbersome that people now withdrew from that. So we need to make it very, very possible, very, very accessible, and very, very and cost effective for people to come through petition. It was a big minus, but as we are going on, we have to do quite a lot of things to bridge that gap, particularly the ease of getting petition done, the capacity of petitions, and take away the challenges are so many. Apart from the petition now, which didn't survive. In fact, as I left, a lot of things happened and so on, because part of the problem was funding. And civil society even helped us in that to plaque. I think it was through the help of UKID and so on. They intervened to help the process and so on, even giving us technical persons. So we don't have that capacity. So that we're building it up, but we must continue. We can't go back now, because it's through public petition that the pulse of the people can be known. It's only through public petition. In fact, it's the effective tool, it's the most effective tool in the jobs of parliamentarians. That's the only way the people can say, we want this or we don't want this, and you give them reasons for hearing it. And it also helps people to know what is the thinking, what are the thinking of their representatives and so on, based on the way they react to petition or one way or the other. So I would think that it is becoming more important and important is for us to develop it, the technical part of it, the methodology, the process, and then the resolutions. At times, in most cases, it's being referred that the resolutions coming from the parliament are not binding. They are mere wishes and so on. So something must be done that such resolutions must be taken seriously. Otherwise, people will lose interest. Why will they come do the whole hog of petition, and then when the parliament resolves a thing, executives may not act on it on time, or will not even act on it at all, saying that it's not legal, it's mere persuasive. It should be more than persuasive. Also, if the two chambers adopts it. So what I tried to develop then was that whatever was done in the House of Representatives, we should take it to the Senate now to look at it and give concurrence, so that the government would take it more seriously. It becomes more effective if the two houses now says this is the way to go to. Mostly if it concerns more of the public. But we don't have a standardized rule then, which is codified to say after the House deliberates on such sensitive matter, it should be sent to Senate to give a concurrence on it. Then the executive cannot say it's just persuasive, because if the representatives of the people say this is the way it should go, and then it should be respected, it should be obeyed, because that's the wishes of the people. That's just what we are doing now. But to sum it up, it is getting a greater dimension in terms of importance. People are beginning to see the usefulness of it. But maybe as time goes on, I will come to the challenges of public petition so far.
Thank you very much, Hon Abonta. So it sounds like it's come a long way, really, because did I understand correctly? You said at the beginning the Petitions Committee had representatives of all constituencies. And if that's the case, then it would have been a very large committee. At least that's what I understood.
No, sorry. I mean from all the states. No, we have 36
all the states. Okay.
Yeah. A representative from each state. It's made up of 37 members from the team, not more than 40.
Okay.
Yes, not every.
Okay. That's really interesting, though, because it really shows that it signifies the link between the Petitions Committee, which should be the committee of the people, and it links it directly to the states. It still makes a large committee, but it's really interesting principle. And I want to ask you more about that, about capacity. But before I go to you, can I just ask from your perspective, Oke, do you think, so from civil society perspective, have petitions become more important or less important? How is it seen from a civil society perspective?
Right. The issue about awareness and public engagement has remained, largely unaddressed. That is, in my opinion, the major cog in the wheel of, effective implementation of the public petitions process, but it is evolving and it is growing. Honorable Abonta made the point about, some of the things he tried to do, at other paper, because what we focus on is to bridge the gap between citizens and parliament and members of parliament. Public petitions is something that we had tried. We continue to try to, espouse about, to the public, because we believe that if they effectively engage public petitions, it will be for us a great way to, measure legislative accountability, which is something that we're heavy on, because we believe that besides lawmaking and performance of oversight, representation is key. And because, like I had mentioned earlier, constituency projects, so-called, are controversial. the public petitions mechanism would be a more objective way to measure performance, because we have been able to measure the performances of members of parliament in an objective manner in the last 6 years or thereabouts, specifically in the last National Assembly, the 4 years. We did an annual appraisal for members of the National Assembly, 469 of them, using the records and data from the National Assembly to be able to determine who has done well, using the metrics of what we call the VVIP, the volume, the value, the impact, and the progression of bills sponsored. So we have all that to pretty much tied it up with respect to lawmaking and bills processing, but for representation, we are keen to see that we're able to also get some objective metrics, and for us, public petitions would be something to really focus on. I'm saying this because this is important for us to understand that it's something that we would like to see, really develop, e-petitions. I don't recall, I'm sure Hon Uzoma Nkem-Abonta would recall that, in the early days of his chairmanship of the committee, with it, come to him to say, look, we could find a way to get the public involved in this. He was very receptive. We had conversations. At some point, we were even speaking with the bureaucracy of the committee, but again, one of the challenges, that hampered service delivery in Parliament, of course, came up, and threw spanners in the wheel of our conversations, and that's funding, that's budget. I recall, I see you mentioned about, special committees, grade A committees. It's interesting because in the Parliament of Nigeria, the committees that you belong to, or the committees that you chair, is a reflection of, your worth, or how much worth that you are expected to exert in Parliament. So that is why you have this categorization, as it were. And public petitions, until recently, like he has said, has not been one of such juicy committee, as it were. And so that was a major, obstacle in the development of that process. So if we focus a lot more attention to see, use it as a measure of performance of members of parliament, a measure of legislative service delivery, a tool for citizens to demand legislative accountability, then it will go a long way to become something that I believe Nigeria can showcase to the world, just like we have been able to deal with the issue of lawmaking, the annual appraisals that we eventually morphed into what we call the most valuable parliamentarian reward system. It's some innovation that is something that we could, get public petitions to become part of. So in summary, it's evolving, and I believe that there's a lot more room for it to catalyze into something that would make the Nigerian parliament much more effective in service delivery.
Thank you. I want to come back to the point of resources and capacity that you mentioned earlier, Hon Abonta. Because obviously that is absolutely key, isn't it? Because if you are liaising with the public, and if you want to respond to the public, then you need the resources to be able to do so, and often that can actually lead to disappointment from the public's perspective, can't it, if there's no response? So the issue of resources and capacity is a really important one, particularly if we're talking of petitions. So it sounds like you're trying to bring in petitions that hasn't worked. I would be curious actually for any other member or the audience have had e-petitions brought into their country, and whether they've seen a change in the way the parliament has been able to deal with it, or the change to the petition system. But there's still the issue, whether you have e-petitions or not e-petitions, there's still the issue of capacity and resources. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Hon Abonta? How have you been able, or how did the committee, when you were chairing it, been able to generate the capacity and the resources to be able to do its role? Or actually, was that an issue that hasn't been addressed?
Yeah, thank you. You see, the functions are quasi-judicial. Therefore, we must be careful. Sentiment, political consideration shouldn't be there. We should be realistic in doing it in line with the extant laws or rules of the country without being technical. So the capacity ought to be there, apart from funding. On that area, we have found one thing, even till date. Like I said, It's a 40-member committee drawn from one per state and then 3 others. So we must have capacity to be able to look at the matter. You see, the matter that may be petitioned before you is of diverse nature. Could be from different socio-political, economic, and whatever may be. So we must have the ability to research, to know, and also that area would dependent on the civil societies to build capacity for us. They can't give us the fund because they don't even have. So in terms of technical support, capacity building, we both from the civil societies, they're able to train us, they're able to organize seminars and stuff like that for us. That's all we did. And then we also tried in-house training to look at what could be best and try to, we must comport ourselves, must discipline ourselves first. We must have that integrity to say this is what we're going to do. So people will see that the outcome of the resolutions are really what it ought to be. It should meet the expectation of the people. So we tried with him to do that. In my own time, what I did was to have regular meetings, retreats with my members, and then inviting persons with capacity to talk to us, to educate us, to train us. In that area, the parliament couldn't get much to do that and so on. So we depend on civil societies who were interested, like Mr. Epia and Clem Nwankwo, who were interested in the growth of knowing the importance of public petition, and they assisted us a lot. That's the capacity we did. Without capacity, you can't do much. You can't give what you don't have. You cannot. You cannot give. And then we should be devoid of technology, so it does not look like the usual court system. We departed from it and made it more social so that people will relax and put their petition and defend their petition and prosecute their petition. We'll try to make it less cumbersome. You know, at times, having access to parliament freely became an issue because of the security issues and so on. Somebody will come all the way from Port Harcourt to come to present a petition or answer to the petition from the gate, begin to face challenges and so on. So all those were part of problems we had, but we are beginning to straighten that. We try to make it possible then during my time that we give you an advance clearance so that you can access the gate, so you can come in freely, so you can come in relaxed in an enabling environment to talk. Those environments were not there because if someone is apprehensive or not well relaxed, will not be able to put the petition as a canvas as they deem fit. That's what we'll try to do. But the challenges are still there. The capacity, the funding. If you look at the budget of public petition and what they need to do is very, very discouraging. If you come to the docket of the public petition, you see so many petitions that we made it so much that people now started coming. They saw, they believed in the parliament, they believed in the 8th assembly. They saw that, look, through public petition, it's possible to now air your view. It's now possible to ask for AYZ. It's not possible to say this or that. But again, we are still crying that we need to still develop the process. We need to the way people can turn in petition. For example, whatever is being discussed in the House, the public has no way of contributing. But through public petition, if codified, you can say if there's a petition where there are 1,000 signatures, the parliament must hear it and decide. You see, but we have absence of that. I think in either in 1976 or 86, so there was a very good amendment that UK did. After some certain number of petitions will come, the clerk will verify them, sustain them, and then process it for hearing. But here, we are still trying to get to that level. And until we get to that level, we'll be struggling. We're struggling. But in totality of it, we must keep modifying it. We need encouragement from the civil societies, from the people, also international communities like you are now, to make an input so that we can grow. That's the only way to deepen our democratic values.
Thank you. So it sounds like in terms of support, in terms of development, there's a lot of direct relationship with civil society in terms of training, as you're saying, but also there's still a lot to do in terms of developing that accessibility from the public. And you've made quite big efforts of people being able to access the building. Can you think of specific examples of petitions that have influenced parliamentary decision making or government policy? It'd be interesting to hear some examples. And if anyone wants to ask any questions, by the way, or if anyone wants to share the experiences of their country to do with the petitions, by all means, click on raise your hand. But yes, Honourable Abonta, any examples of petitions that have influenced, or changed policy, or informed policy that come to mind?
Yes, I will say, for example, there was a time when people were, their buildings also are being demolished in some certain areas for some certain government policies, and they brought they came to public petition to say, we're indigenous occupants of XYZ areas. If you're trying to move us, you must do one or two needfuls and so on. And at the totality of the matter, we considered it and came on the resolution, said you can't depossess people of their place without alternative place of abode. And then that slowed the government say, no, you must plan, you must provide before you can relocate somebody. Even though government, you can acquire the land you want for overriding public interest, but you cannot do that arbitrarily. You cannot do that without putting certain things in place. That's a typical example. There's a place around in Niger State where people had been there, given to them by around immediately after the Civil War, around 1970. Then somebody came, the governor came, trying to, after 40, 50 years of settlement, to say, you must move immediately. And they came with petitions, and then we looked at it, called all parties together, reasoned it, and said, no, this is the appropriate way to go.
Thank you. That's a great example of sort of how to bring in an issue that people might not be thinking about, and then how can that lead to a change. Before I go to my next question, there's actually a question for you, Honourable Abonta, in the chat. So I'm going to read it if that's okay. It's from, and I'm sorry for saying the name really wrongly, but Adebowale Orunolomala, saying that your effort to promote the bill to enable Nigerians to petition the National Assembly is commendable. Do you plan to represent this bill at the National Assembly? Do you plan to bring back this issue?
Well, that is the problem. Yes, I have to look for a parliamentarian now who can present. Now I'm no longer in the parliament. You see, with the way our bills are also done, I can't present a bill. We don't even have, except executive or members of the bills. There's no way the public can sponsor a bill. So I've approached a member to say, please take it up and then canvass it. Well, we will now begin to give support with civil societies from up the parliament and see what we can do. We advocate for it. So in the next possible few weeks, somebody will represent the bill. Well, we'll do the advocacy on it, because that's the only way the public will have a say. That's the only way the public can say, we want so discussed in the parliament. Because if you look at the other paper, it's either the executive thing or private members thing. There's no way the public can add any item on the other paper. But through that bill, if it sails through, and then 10,000 people or persons signed a verifiable signature or signatures, we can now say, having done this, having verified the signatures, automatically the parliament must hear and consider such a thing on the other paper. So I would definitely look for a way to represent the bill. It must, otherwise my effort will just be there. We must do that. Like in other climes, we have such bills in UK and so on. I think in 1986 that they had the amendment that contained that. So we must do that. We'll try to imitate the good things that other climes have in their public petitions, have in their things of contributions and so on. That's the only way we can be sure that everybody is included. Inclusiveness in our democratic process. We need it. If there's no inclusiveness, then people will begin to doubt the credibility of the government. People will not buy into policies that they are not part of. People will not naturally support things that they think is oppressive, that they had no say. But if there's a collective say, then people will be able to know what to do. Let me give you a typical example. We had this very, very unfortunate event in Nigeria they called EndSARS, the EndSARS riot. You see, people had complained, people had petitioned, people had done that, but they were not taken seriously until we had that EndSARS. But if we had such that, because over 1 million youths participated in that EndSARS, but if they had sent 100,000, the parliament would be able to say, these are their complaints, and we'll have sat down and looked at it, and that would have avoided that NSAS saga, because we had no very, very proper, thorough public petition procedures. It cost Nigeria the effect of NSAS. I don't think Nigeria recovered from it till today. But what were they asking? Stop SARS, change military chiefs, and so on and so on. They were asking about 5 things that was known to all. But because they were not harnessed properly and presented to Parliament, Parliament did not discuss it from that perspective. So I think I must find a way to present that bill, and we also ask for people who can help canvass for the bill, advocate for it. We need it. It will help us a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, quite a few parliaments since about 2015 have brought in e-petition systems, which does make it much more democratic, as you say, because people can access it from different places. It does bring other divides, obviously, which is people who can't access the internet so easily. Then it becomes more difficult for those people. It does also increase the volume of petitions to deal with quite a bit. And so the resources then become even more important, don't they, in terms of, who are the staff supporting this, and do you have staff to look through the petition? So all hopefully interesting points for us to discuss further, particularly if Nigeria does bring in petitions. And then if that happens, then I would like you to come back here and then talk about how is it the reality of dealing with the petitions. But we sort of getting towards the end of the webinar, and I want to ask my last question to both of you. And if anyone has got questions, please click on raise your hand, and I'll bring you in, whether it's just to share the experience in your country, or whether it's to ask a question to our speakers. So I would like to ask both of you, if you had a magic wand, and I'll start with you, Oke, if that's okay. If you had a magic wand, what would you do in terms of reforming the petition system? What would you do from a civil society perspective? And then I'll come to you, Honourable Abonta, if that's okay. If you had a magic wand, what would be the main reform you would do? Thank you.
Right, thank you. I would step up the public petitions mechanism. I use STEP as an acronym, STEP, and I'll just briefly explain. We would need to standardize the process, where there is little or no discretion and interference in how, a properly streamlined process operates. For instance, we won't have a situation we had, I think in the last year or 2 years ago, where the presiding officer in the House of Representatives decided unilaterally that a petition that was presented from the diaspora was not going to be entertained because they were in diaspora. So you see all manners of discretion and politicization of a very beautiful, otherwise beautiful process, to express parliamentary service delivery. So we standardize the process, and the next one would be to introduce some tracking, tracking where citizens are able to track petitions that are received in Parliament, the processing of those petitions, the outcomes of those petitions, what do they amount to at the end of the day? That's the only way you can build confidence for citizens to continue to invest their energies in it. The other one, the E is, is what Honorable Abonta stated, e-petitions, digitize the process, let members of the public be able to circumvent the difficulties of access to Parliament, the difficulties of not being able to, access their parliamentarians, and other people is happy. In fact, we're working on something like that already, to set up a digital process where citizens can, pass their petitions and go the extra mile of getting into Parliament using the access that we have to ensure that some attention is given to these petitions. And lastly, the one P, the letter P is for, public awareness. There has to be massive public awareness, regarding the public petitions process. Just before this seminar, we did a poll, a social media poll, as it were, of citizens, understanding or awareness of the public petitions process. And the results show that it is still quite low. Only about 46% of citizens knew about public petitions process, and of this 46%, only about 18% expressed confidence in the process. So there's a lot of public awareness that needs to happen, and that's because we are dealing with a depleted, highly depleted, trust level in governments, in parliaments, and that ties into the whole issue of misconceptions, and misplaced expectations that I started my conversations with. So, if I had that magic wand, Christina, is to step up public petitions system in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oke. That was so clear. I will never forget that step. So standardize for S, and obviously standardized procedure is so important for any process to be recognized, particularly with the public perception, isn't it? If it's not standardized, then people don't really recognize it. And then tracking, E for digitizing, and P for public awareness. I will remember that for other systems. And Honourable Abonta, if you had a magic wand, what sort of reforms would you bring in?
Yeah, thank you. I will adopt what my brother said. First of all, what I outlined here is one, if I had that magic wand, I will standardize it and make sure that this bill passes. It will add credibility to public petition, and it will give the audacity. It will compel the House to hear petitions, not now at the whims and caprices of the presiding officers, you see, and then the resolutions will also be made known. So I had the e-petition platform for monitoring, and then they're able to now see proper progress of the petition. What we tried then to do was to let people monitor their petition. Why did we stop? What did we adjourn? Where are we going to? And so on. So if I had the magic wand, I will revolutionize the public petition. I'll add like capacity in it. You see, the quality of the staff you have is not encouraging. At the time that even UKID had to give us technical staff who they were paying. They had to get the pay from outside civil societies and so on. So if I have that one, I will let them have more budget, more capacity, more personnel, then propagate, advertise, and let the public know what we are doing. I disagree with my brother, that 46% of people are aware of public petition. No, it's quite less than that. Maybe they hear the name public, they do not know the uses, the functions, and what public petition could do. It's less than that. Maybe they just hear public petition committees, but tell them what are their duties, what are their functions, what are they supposed to do. They do not know that. So we must do complete advocacy. And public petition, I'll make it to be in a way that the public will have confidence in what they are doing. Because in my time, we raised it up, the values and whatever, in a way that even SAN lawyers started coming to file matters because of the way it was speedily done. I do not see why a petition should last more than 3 months with the parliament. You should be able to know. You should be able to tell your fate. Otherwise, people say, if we're wasting this time, let's go to court. But because of lack of adequate staff and manpower and funding, you see some petitions staying up to that. Secondly, it takes time for the resolution to be scheduled to be considered by the House. After public petition, the resolutions are now sent to the House Committee of the Whole in the House to be considered. And so it shouldn't lie within the presiding officer to consider, to take which petition to consider and which not to consider. It should be given a priority. It should be treated like a money bill. Those resolutions, it should be treated because it's a thing that concerns the persons. It shouldn't be kept to be produced, to be looked at when the presiding officer wants or not. No, it should be given first class. It should be given front burner attention. Otherwise, because when I left office, there are a lot of petitions we concluded, but the House could not consider it. It means they'll start de novo. It's also wasting. You see that fund and parliamentary time has so been wasted. So we should be able to look at it from that angle. Otherwise, if I had that magic one, these are the things I would put in a codified, standardized form that will become the ideal order that shouldn't be departed from. Thank you.
Thank you. That magic wand is carrying a lot of weight, isn't it? From capacity, budget, etc. And I like that, the idea that the petitions committee should be considered as important as a money bill, and give that sort of increase the importance perceived for other people of petitions. There's a couple of questions in the chat which I'm not sure we'll have time to go to, but Olabode Afuraju has been trying to come in for a while. Do you want to ask your question, Olabode, and briefly, because we're running out of time? Thank you. Olabode Afuraju, sorry if I can't find the proper.
Yes.
Do you have a question?
Um, Thank you very much for the whole session. I just want to say I've been soaking all that has been said in, and it's more like a feedback
Uh-huh.
on what, yes, it's more like a feedback on what has been said, and I don't want to say it's been so encouraging listening to all of this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I come to a question that's in the chat? And I'll make this the last question because we're running out of time. And I'll go to Oke on this, but if you can give a brief answer, if that's okay. Why is it difficult for the literature to harness this opportunity of petitions to aid the promotion of good governance?
The leadership of the legislature needs to place a premium on the importance of the Public Petitions Committee. They should not just see it as one other committee, even though they may have elevated the status to a special committee, one other committee for the boys, as we say it in the Nigerian parlance. The committee needs to be fully resourced, within the capacity of the legislature, within the constraints of the budget of the legislature. And the persons that are appointed to head those committees also matter a lot. If you check the history, the trajectory of the Public Petitions Committee in the House of Representatives, I can speak to that specifically. You would find that each time we had a very well capacitated individual, sound in background, a lawyer and all of that, you would see lots of results and all of that, but when you had just someone with less credentials, without the right credentials, become chairperson of that committee, you do not see the kind of results that you would find, when you had the other scenario. So the persons of sounds, legal discipline, disciplinary backgrounds, with some credibility, lots of credibility. People believe that they want to deliver service, not that they see the committee as another avenue, to go and perform oversight, as it were. So those are two very important factors. The leadership of parliament must, give the committee of public petitions its rightful place, and then those appointed to head those committees must be persons of integrity, of dignity, and the right disciplinary background.
Thank you very much. And there's a question about transparency and accountability, how to measure this. And Honourable Abonta, can you give us your final reflection, and we'll finish on that. How can we measure transparency and accountability in petitions?
How to measure accountability? Well, it's to be open, transparent, sit publicly, hear it, and advertise what you're doing, and let people follow. Let people know what you're doing, how you arrive at it, and so on. Of course, you should devoid of political considerations and so on. There should be no interference. There shouldn't be a lot of adjournments, and it should be speedily dispensed. People should be allowed to air their views there and then, to say it and so on. That's the public petition. The confidence must be built. You must build the confidence so that people will see what you are doing and that is properly done. And so justice must not be done, but must be seen to be done. So in public petition, people must see the public. We should sit publicly. You should let the date know. You should allow whoever wants to come to watch, observe, also come. Like I encourage the press, social media, while we were sitting. I encourage that a lot so that people will know and see what we were doing. It's not a thing that will be hidden in one house committee to do what we're doing. No.
Thank you very much. And that's sort of the foundation of it all, isn't it? If you don't have that transparency, then you can't have the accountability. Then people don't necessarily believe in it, don't get involved, and then members don't see the value of it and don't invest in it. And so that transparency, accountability is really important at the end of it all. Well, thank you very much. We heard lots of different really interesting perspectives from Nigeria and the challenges faced there, and the very long list of the magic wand of all the things that needs to be done still, and particularly following that step recipe that Oke outlined there. Before I finalize and say all my thank yous, just to announce our next IPU IPEN Public Engagement Hub seminar that will be taking place on the 8th of November, and it will be on meaningful engagement. So actually it touches on some of the things we've talked about here today in terms of how can public engagement legitimize laws, and what counts as meaningful engagement to legitimize those laws. Also, and hopefully Temitai will be putting a link to that in the chat, or Fiona has. So Fiona's put the link for the next seminar in the chat. If you'd like to register to that, just go to that link. And also to say that if you want more details about the Public Engagement Hub, again, we'll put the website link in the chat. There are quite a few people here today from Nigeria. There's some questions about translation. This is a very international type of seminars. It's a series of seminars. We look at lots of different countries, and so by standard, we'll do translations to two of the main languages of the people who come to our seminars, which is in Spanish and French. And you have more links in there about the Public Engagement Hub. If anyone is interested in IPEN, the International Parliament Engagement Network, where we get in more depth in terms of these topics, then there's a link in there also Fiona's just posted. And thank you very much, Maciej from Poland, from the Senate of the Polish Republic. Very nice to have you here. Also, when we will circulate the video, the recording of this seminar today, and with it, we'll also circulate a link to a piece of work that the IPU has done for the Public Engagement Hub on petitions. So you'll be able to see a summary, an overview of how different countries across the world use petition systems. So if you're interested in petitions, I would really encourage you to look out for that email from us when we circulate the video and the link to that summary. And I think that's all the announcements I wanted to make. So now to thank you. So thank you everyone for attending, and particularly of those of you who are placed in places where it's quite early for you to be here. We're very humbled to see you here in joining our seminar. Thank you to the interpreters who do an incredible job in following our quick speaking and translating into French and Spanish, which means we can offer this to a much wider range of countries. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you to our speakers, to Hon Uzoma Nkem-Abonta and Oke Epia, for your insights. You have a lot of experience and play clearly a very important role in Nigeria in sort of stimulating the participation of citizens and in civil society, and we hope that you carry on playing those roles. So thank you so much for giving us the time to be here. Can I ask everyone to join me in showing our appreciation of our speakers with a virtual clapping, which you can get at the bottom of your screen, and just under reactions, just click on it, or just do like that, however you want to do. And that's it. So thank you very much for everyone, and I hope to see you in the seminar in the near time soon.